All right, so this morning, we shall look at the module 2 of our lesson, which is on telecommunications. All right, by the end of this module, you should be able to explain telecommunications and associated tools. What do you mean by telecommunications? What are the components of telecommunications? What are their uses? And what are the applications of telecommunications? And some of the tools associated with telecommunications. We should be able to write a reflection note on computer networking. So networking. So what do you mean by computer networking? Or when do we network computers and why? And what are different types of networking? The advantages and disadvantages. You should be able to write a reflection note of these tools. So let's have it. Telecommunication and education. This is a small definition. Like, telecommunication is the process of sending information in any form from one place to another, utilizing electronic or light emitting media. So from this definition, you observe something that whenever we say telecommunication, we are talking about a process. And a process of what? The process of sending information. Remember in our last class, we made a distinction between information and data, where we say information is processed data. So whenever you process data, the output or the outcome or the product of that will be information. Now, the process of now sending this information in any form, whether it is sound, whether it is audio, whether it is text, whether it is video or something. So the process of sending information in any form from one place to another, when we utilize electronic or light emitting media, we call the process telecommunication. Very easy. So it encompasses a vast network of technologies and systems that are designed to connect individuals and devices across the globe, across the whole world. So why do we have to telecommunicate? Why do we engage in telecommunication? The primary goal of telecommunication is to facilitate instantaneous communication. Instantaneous is a word that is coming from instant, that is immediate, okay? So the primary goal of telecommunication is to facilitate immediate communication, where we can break down the barrier of geography. This way we can break the barrier of geographical barriers, and where we can transform the way people interact and conduct business. All right. So for instance, now if you pick up your phone and you try to call your mom or your dad elsewhere outside the area, so you are able to break the barrier by using that electronic means of communicating with them. So you are engaging already in what? Telecommunication. In fact, what we are doing right now, we are also engaging in what? In telecommunication. So instead of us to converge in a single classroom, everybody is in his places or our places, and then we are doing what? We are communicating with each other. We are interacting as if we are in the same place. So the whole world now has become a small village where everybody is connected. So the purpose of telecommunication is to facilitate immediate or instant communication, where we can break down the barriers of geography and where we can transform the way people interact and conduct business. It plays a crucial role in enabling real-time sharing of ideas, collaboration on projects, and maintaining connections with people worldwide. What concerns us most as educators is what are the purposes of this telecommunication in education? Why do we engage in telecommunication in education? So telecommunication has fundamentally changed the way we interact, so which makes the world feel smaller and more All right, I'm taking this particular page again. Like some of you mentioned, you couldn't get what I was saying before. So I said the purpose of telecommunication in education, which is our concern. So telecommunication in education, telecommunication has actually revolutionized the way we teach, the way we learn, and the way we interact with each other. Okay, it's allowed educators and learners to connect globally. So this breaks down the traditional geographical barriers in education. Without telecommunication, without this medium, for instance, now, all of us must be in a single class, where wherever you stay, wherever you live, you must move down to the campus and go to dedicated venue. And with the problems of these lack of venues and stuff like that, it may be difficult at times to make our smooth class. But with this telecommunication tool, we can now have our class, even though we are at different locations, but as if we are in the same what? In the same location. And in fact, we're actually in the same location, but in the virtual space, not in the physical space. So there are some tools that assist us a lot in education, all right? So we have tools like video conferencing, which is exactly what we are doing right now. We're having what we call video conferencing class. So where I can teach you, you can see my face, and if you want me to see your face, you can unmute yourself. I mean, you can open your camera, then I also see you too. So with this video conferencing, we're able to break down the barriers of teaching and learning. The same thing with messaging apps. So on WhatsApp, you can communicate, you can share your lesson notes, you can share things related to education with yourself or with your lecturer. So educational tools such as video conferencing and messaging apps have become essential for connecting with students, irrespective of your location. And this provides new opportunities for remote learning. But of course, this must come with challenges. Despite these advantages, despite these affordance, we also have some challenges included, which may be difficulty in replicating in-person engagement and potential technical issues or disruptions in connectivity. Even not only in connectivity, in some people making noise at the background now. If it happens to be a physical class, you know how silent you used to be. But now it comes to virtual space, everybody is just talking, you know, distracting the class. The same thing can have problem with connectivity. Like internet may not be strong enough to follow this class, or you don't have technology devices to follow this class, all right? So these are some of the challenges, though we are going to expand this later on. But for now, we have to proceed. I said, benefit of telecommunication in education. We reap a lot of benefits, okay, when we engage in these tools for teaching and learning. The very first thing we have is access to vast amount of information. Telecommunication provides students and educators with access to a virtually limitless source of information through devices like internet and stuff like that. And in fact, with the coming of AI now, it is now a boom of access to vast amount of what? Information. So another thing is global connection. By connecting educators and students worldwide, telecommunication opens up new possibilities for remote learning and collaboration, overcoming traditional classroom limitations. So somebody in Nigeria can be your teacher. I mean, somebody in abroad, maybe in the US, for instance, can be your teacher while you are in Nigeria because of this telecommunication. If you go to Khan Academy now to enroll for a course or the Nigerian Learning Passport, which we are going to start soon, so your teachers may not be in Nigeria, may not be located in Nigeria. So with the coming of these tools, you are able to get internet, global connectivity between you and the people outside. All right. So we also are able to overcome the barriers. When we talk about the barriers here, we are talking about the geographical barriers. Okay. So the distance does not matter again. We have a lot of people that enroll in ABU distance learning. Maybe you are aware that ABU runs some programs online. Among them is computer science. Among them is most of these MBAs now, they are all online. So with the Center of Distance Learning, in fact, people from abroad, from the US, from the UK, from Saudi Arabia, they enroll for our programs and they get the degree. You even did convocation the last time when the regular student also convocated. So they are able to overcome the barriers. Maybe they are in UK, for instance, they can't come to Nigeria for our degree, then they can enroll online and have their degree. The same degree that you will have, they also have it without any discrimination. So with the coming of telecommunication, we are able to break down this distance, okay? Perfect. But there are some noticeable challenges, like we cannot replicate in-person interaction. You see, when you are in class and when you're in a virtual space, now you are in your space now. It's difficult to interact with yourself just like the way you do when you are in class. You can't smile at your faces. You can't know somebody that is sad now, especially by the person putting off his camera. You will know whether he's sad, you know whether he's happy, you know whether he's smiling. You will not know whether he's even listening to what you are teaching as a teacher or what you are discussing as students in an interactive group. So in-person interaction may be difficult to replicate when you engage too much in technology. The same thing will be technical issues, okay, which can come up from your internet, from your light bulb lights, or from your wherever. So a lot of issues can come, or lack of even the money to even buy some of these Android phone or to subscribe to your data. But we must understand one thing. Nothing comes easy in this life. For everything that has advantage must have what? A disadvantage. And in between, the benefit of telecommunication and education actually outweighs, as in it has more weight than what the challenge is. So we need to keep ourselves cool. There are endless possibilities for us as teachers. So we must not be discouraged with the challenges we face. Rather, we look at the prospect of this telecommunication and education. Now, let's now talk about some electronic means of transmitting information, which is part of the important concept in this particular lesson. In the olden days, there are various means through which people communicate with each other, like the town crier, you want to pass a message from the king, or lighting up lights or stuff like that, or sending letters. You write letters in the paper. Oh, like some of us that maybe we didn't enjoy it like those that came before us, generation before us. Like whenever they are writing a letter, maybe you are school in Zaria, for instance, you write a letter and your parents in Lagos. You write a letter on a paper and then you give it to the driver, Lagos bus. You go to Lagos bus park and you give it to them. They will take it to Lagos and locate your parents. There was no telephone to inform them, nothing. So they locate your parent and give it to your parent. For you to get the reply from your parent, you have to write back and then send it back to Zaria. In between, this may take 2 weeks. A week before it gets to Lagos and a week before it gets back to Zaria. But with the coming of electronic means, this has become something out of place. It's so strange now when somebody is carrying physical papers up and down for writing the letters to parents or to loved ones, as the case may be. So we have electronic means of transmitting information these days, and this includes fax machine, telex, even though some of you may not know fax machine because this one is also becoming old version. People don't use it again, or even telex, people don't use it again. This is a fax machine example here. So it's popular in those days for sending and receiving pictures and text over telephone lines. So fax machines have largely been replaced by email due to the advancement in digital communication. We don't use fax machine again, unfortunately for it, sorry, but now we use a more robust means of communicating with each other. So another point there is the telex. Telex is also close to fax machine. However, this is an international telegraphy system using teleprinters. It transmitted printed messages over the public telecommunication networks, all right? So we also have the radio and the television. Some of us, we still have a radio, like this one too is becoming old version because with the coming of phones now, you can incorporate what? They have incorporated radio into telephones. But we still see some people, especially in the villages, that still carry radios all up and down to listen to news and stuff like that. The same thing with television. Now smart screen, flat screens, LCD screens, now they have replaced some of the olden days televisions, all right? So instead of you carrying that big box, which they call color TV in those days, so now we now have flat screen, LCD screen that does the job better than before. Then we have telephone, this for transmitting audio information, so through phone networks, serving as a fundamental tool in personal and business communication. So then we have the satellites. So this one, some of you've heard of satellite before, but perhaps you've not seen one. So, but maybe in some documentaries you have seen satellite. This one is located in the space. So where the whole of the Earth can be interconnected, and the process is described here. So we have a user that is communicating through antenna to the satellite, and the information is decoded, transmitted back to the Earth, okay, back to the user. So this is how you get information from the user over here, okay. So you send your messages through the antenna, and then it's taken to the satellite of the space. Then the antenna will receive it back, and then it backs to the Earth, and then it's back to you as a user. So some of these messages you send online, it passes through this process. However, it is very fast, not as slow as we might think of it. So in the modern world, so the one we just described before, they are traditional means. Now we're not talking about the modern world where we use email to communicate better than before. I received emails from some of you the last time that you sent to me, maybe on a congratulatory level. That is fine. So, but as time goes on, it will take a time before it delivers. And it will take a time before you check. If you don't check your mail, so that means the mail will be hanging in there, or you check, you don't reply. So it is not as instant as like this one we're having now. This is instant. Immediately I speak, you hear. Immediately I move my hand, you see. Okay, and immediately you speak, I also hear. This one is instant. However, with email, it is not instant. It can hang in the air, as the case may be, and you may not open your mail to check, so you may not receive that particular message on time. Then we have the social media, so platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on, WhatsApp, they facilitate the sharing of information and updates, connecting people on a global scale. So we also have text messaging and instant messaging app, like the SMS, short SMS, you have the Skype, the Slack, and the WhatsApp. So, however, now WhatsApp is becoming more advanced than just messaging apps. You can send videos. In fact, with this type of lesson, you can have it on WhatsApp. Instead of using Zoom, we can use WhatsApp for a class where the video will be on, attachment will be shared, and so on and so forth. I think this is work in progress. They are progressing day by day. All right. So we also have some virtual communication tools like video conferencing tool. Maybe some of you, this is the first time of experiencing Zoom class. Now you've seen it. This is how it is. So you need to mute yourself to ensure decorum. Whenever you want to speak, that's when you unmute yourself. So this will make us move, and this will make the word easy for us to follow. So platforms like Zoom, what we are using now is Zoom. We also have other ones like Google Meet, and I told you WhatsApp is doing the same thing now. So there are so many other out there. However, what is more important here is that video conferencing tools, they allow us to have virtual meetings, make a lesson, which will foster collaboration and communication in real time. You can also share files. So on somebody want to speak or you want to distract. So we also have file sharing. So in which there are some tools that are used for sharing files, like Dropbox, like Google Drive. Like for this particular course now, we have a dedicated Google Drive, which I just give you the link. Just click the link, then it will take you to our virtual space where you can get the lesson notes, you can get the PPT files, you can get the syllabus, you can get the textbook, you can get anything related to this course. It's file sharing, and you can use it for communicating with each other. You can collaborate on Google Drive, as I will show you maybe as we move on in this particular course. So these are some of the tools that I've just described. Look at the symbol for Zoom. Maybe this also appears on your screen as you're following this class. Like Join Me, look at Skype, look at Teams, yeah, look at big black button. Then you have Life Size, we have the Soho meeting. So these are some of the tools that we use for virtual interaction, for virtual teaching, or for virtual learning as educators. Perfect. So still on that, we also have some tools that we use for storing our data, for storing our information. So class storage, where we store them in space, not in a physical form. And I will encourage each and every I will encourage each and every one of you. So our moderator, do your job. Okay.
No sweet. I
have to step in here. Okay. All right. So we also have what we call the cloud storage, where you can store your data. You can store your data online. Okay. And I'm sending this message to every one of you. If you don't have a Gmail account, go and open Gmail now as I speak. If you have Yahoo or any other account, can keep them aside for now. Open a Gmail account. With a Gmail account, you have access to Google Drive, where you can store your important documents, your primary school certificate, your birth certificate, your secondary school certificate, your WAEC certificate, your admission letter, all the certificate that matters to you. What to do? You scan them, very clean scan, and then you upload them into your Google Drive. This will do you a lot of favor. You might be in a place where you just need your birth certificate, for instance. Your birth certificate may be in your village. Why you need it right now at that spot? What you just need to do, log into your Gmail, go to your Google Drive, download and print. So you can keep and organize your files online this way. Some important document to you, start doing it now, and then you will appreciate it later. So, and Gmail will provide that access for you free of charge. I think you have up to 15 gig of information to store, which you don't need. You don't need that. Your document will not take up to maybe 1 megabyte or even so very small things, you know. So, but with that, you can able to store your information. Also, even so, you can store some videos. There are some videos that are very dear to you. Okay, maybe your wedding video or your graduation video, from stuff like that. You have it there, you can store them. With that, you don't have to bother whether your flash drive is corrupted or whether your CD is not working, this kind of a thing. And anytime you want to access this thing, just log into your Gmail. Another thing you can do again is you can even store your contacts. The contact on your phone, you can store them on Gmail. If your phone is stolen, you don't have to worry about getting your numbers or missing your numbers. As soon as you get a new phone, you just log in your Gmail and all your contacts, you synchronize them back to the new phone. So this is very good practice for you that you need to learn and start doing. So this is the kind of cloud computing, cloud storage. So we have the Dropbox, we have the OneDrive, we have the Google Drive, we have the iCloud. Some of these are very free. Like OneDrive is not free, I can remember that. But Google Drive is free, you get 15 gig. Dropbox, you also get free version. I think iCloud too. This one comes with the iPhone. All right, very good. So we have just spoken about some of the tools, and the one we use for sending information, the one we use for sending text, the one we use for video conferencing lesson, the one we use for storage. We've spoken about this, and there are some questions here that you may find interesting. Okay, let's look at them one after the other. I think we have the time to go through this. So look at the first question. Discuss the transformative impact of telecommunication on global interactions and business operations. Highlight specific examples and challenges associated with this technology. Okay. So another question there says, examine the role of telecommunication in revolutionizing education. Explore the benefits and challenges of connecting educators and learners globally and provide insight into the potential future development in remote learning. We also have the third one, compare and contrast. You see, in a test or exam, so whenever you are asked, or whenever I ask you to compare and contrast, I'm asking you to make a table. I'm asking you to do what? To make a table where you have one column for similarity, then another column for differences. Then you compare these tools. So in this case, we are talking about compare and contrast traditional methods like machines and telex with modern tools such as email, social media, and video conferencing in communication. So you're gonna have a column for traditional means of communicating. They have another column for what modern means of communicating. Then you start bringing in the differences, the similarities. One similarity is that they are both used for sending information from one place to another, but you also have the differences. The olden days one are not as capable as the new one. Some of them are not instant, okay, and stuff like that. So the fourth question here says, evaluate the challenges and benefits associated with telecommunication in education. What are the challenges? What are the benefits? Okay, which we have mentioned them in this lesson. They also need to discuss the benefit of telecommunication in education and communication, but also emphasize the significance of taking breaks from screens and cultivating mindfulness. Yeah, it's talking about the challenges that are associated with the use of this technology. Provide strategies for achieving a healthy interaction with technology. What are the strategies that you can use to achieve this? All right, so we move to the next segment of our lesson, which is on the modes of receiving information. What are the modes through which we receive information? So there are many different modes of receiving information. Remember, we talk about communication, sending and receiving, right? But here we talk about read from the screen. So this is a way through which you receive information that I'm sending out, or the screen is sending out. Okay? Then can be sound. You can hear the person speaking. Okay? So that will be through some tools, right? Feel what it is, even though your eyes are closed. But once you touch a cloth, you know that, oh, this must be cloth. And once you touch something hard, you know this must be plastic. Then it can be taste, through which you taste something to differentiate what it is from the other. Maybe you saw a powder in your kitchen now. You are not doubting whether it is salt or whether it is flour. And by the time you taste it, you know what it is. So each of these modes is and disadvantages for sure. And most effective mode of receiving information often depends on the context and the specific means. By listening to the person you are getting information from, or by listening to the electronic media. So the advantage is that you can be listening to something and be doing something else, right? You can be listening to your lecture right now and be cooking your food. So multitasking is an advantage of audio information, all right? You can be driving and be listening to something else. So, but the limitation is that this is dependent on hearing ability. If you have difficulty in hearing, you find it challenging to engage in this kind of mode of. They also have the visual means through which you need to see that thing, like you see the screen or you see the lecturer speaks. All right. So the advantage is that this one allows processing at one phase, effective for referencing. It allows you to, okay, this is what he's talking about. You see, some people will say a picture worth more than 1,000 words. If you speak the old grammar and there is no picture, you may still not get it. But as soon as you see the picture, you can relate. Oh, this is what he's talking about. So virtual actually offers some advantages when it comes to receiving information. But the limitation is that, again, if you have impairments in your vision, then this can be something problematic. Like people that are blind now will find it difficult to receive what information which is visual, but they will prefer sound, audio. All right. People that are deaf but can see will prefer sound. All right. So again, I think I need to step in now. Okay, it's quiet. All right. So still on that, we have audio means or mode of receiving information. Then we have visual mode of receiving information. Now we have audio visual. These two things together, where you can get the sound and then you can see the pictures. So here, the benefit is that simultaneously, this will give you both auditory and the visual stimuli. Okay, to allow you to use your hearing and to allow you to see your vision, ability to see. And this will engage what? It will increase the engagement in the learning content. But again, we also have challenges. This requires visual literacy, a potential barrier for individuals with visual impairment. And it requires audio ability too, which is also a disadvantage for those with hearing impairment. They also have the touch and the taste, which usually in education we don't use it, except for practical sense. When you're having your practical now in your science lab, perhaps you may need to touch it, though maybe you may not need to taste. All right. So this can give you less common but valuable in specific contexts. Example, touch for exploring texture. Like we are dealing with fabrics now, you want to know whether the texture is okay or not. So can taste for understanding the flavor of something. All right. So these are the basic modes through which we receive information. There is now an important process while receiving information, and that particular process is what we call modulation. You see, the radio companies, the transmission companies, they engage in some things that are behind the scene, which some of you may not see, except if you have some deep knowledge about it. So one of these fundamental things they engage in is what we call modulation. What is modulation? It's the process of changing some characteristics, okay, of a carrier wave by the intensity of the signal. So we have a carrier wave. Like remember, maybe in your physics, some courses you did that requires physics, you have seen something on waves before. So we have the sine wave, the cosine waves, and stuff like that. Then we'll talk about the characteristics of the wave, like the amplitude, the frequency, and the phase. How high is the wave, or how many cycles the wave completes, then or the phase angle. So these are the characteristics of the wave. So for you to receive information from me as I speak, it has gone through some processes before it gets to you. And the process through which this has gone through, I speak to my mic here, while you hear from your speaker out there. So from myself to your side, it has gone through a lot of process. One of them is what we call modulation, where the frequency with which I speak, the amplitude with which I speak, and the phase angle at which I speak have been modified so that you can hear me exactly the way I say. All right? So the purpose of this is that changing characteristics of a carrier wave based on the signal intensity, that's what we want to gain. And the significance is that it enables transmission at high frequencies while carrying audio signals. All right? So you may be wondering, you speak at times to somebody and it is cracking. You say a network problem. Oh, it is network problem. That is because the characteristics of the wave have not been perfected. The modulation is not fully processed. All right? So we now have three different types of modulation depending on the characteristics of the wave. We have the amplitude modulation, we have the frequency modulation, we have the phase modulation. You see, amplitude, okay, I'm bringing the picture. The next slide. Amplitude is about here. So how high should it be? As I speak, at what height am I speaking? For you to hear me clearly, at what height should you receive it? So modulation will now be an amplitude modulation will now be change of this height in such a way that you are going to receive the exact information that I speak. How loud it should be, or how low it should be, depending on that is completed per time. So what is the number of cycles that the wave I speak with complete per time? And then modulation will process it in such a way that you will receive at that particular place so that you will get exactly diagram somewhere, maybe after this slide. So the amplitude modulation, basically, it has to do with changing the amplitude of the wave. This is utilized in the radio broadcasting. And the key point is that amplitude variations are at the signal frequency and carrier wave frequency. It remains the same so that you can hear. The same thing with the frequency. This is common in radio and television. All right. And then for the phase angle, so this particular one is used in some digital communication systems like the one we are speaking with. So let's have a diagram of it. Now look at it. So this is amplitude modulation. Where you have the message is here. This is a message signal. You can see the fine tune amplitude. How high? Amplitude is how high from here to here, how high from here to here, how high from here to here, and how high from here to here. But look at the carrier wave. When I speak with the message, the carrier wave, you can look at how the amplitude now is higher than before. Here it is flatter, but here it is what? Higher. But by the time it gets to the modulated one, look at it. Some pitches are high, low, high, low. When you speak, at times you speak with low voice, and at times you speak with what? High voice. So depending on the emphasis in the words that you pronounce. So that's why you can see the high and the low in such a way that the sound comes out the way it should be. So this is for the amplitude. They also have the frequency. Number of cycles it completes per second or per time. So this one is a full circle from here to here. This is a full circle. Okay? And another circle from here to here. So that means the whole of this message, you have 2 circles. But look at the carrier wave, so many circles, and look at the modulated wave or the signal. You can see the circles is not as much as the carrier wave in such a way that you will get the proper information. Then we also have the phase angle modulation, where the angles will be modulated. Look at the modulated one. You can see it is not forming the concentric circles like before. Rather, these are now at different angles, unlike the carrier wave. So these are the types of modulation that we have, and the process is simple. It's just for us to hear ourselves clearly so that the information will pass out from one end will exactly be received in the other end. And this is usually done by those in the radio station or television station or some of the digital devices. When you call your mom now and you speak, at times your voice can be faint as a result of the modulation. And at times they can get you clearly as a result of the modulation, which are dependent on the internet, as the case may be, or the network strength. So this is something that is basic that you should get as part of this course. Whenever we talk about telecommunication, there's no way we don't talk about modulation. So I hope this is now, the last part of the note has to do with introduction to computer networks. Remember, part of the learning outcomes which we said we're going to have is that you will be introduced to computer networks. So what are computer networks? Okay, remember, we also have individual networks. Like you have some networks, the people around you, the people that are connected with you, the people you are connected with, that is a network, starting from your family, the nuclear family, your brothers, your siblings, your mother, your father, they are your network, right? They form your network. The same thing, we also have computer networks, the other computers that are connected with another computer. So let's have it there. So definition, computer networks are interconnected systems ranging from small setups, sharing resources, to large-scale networks like the internet. All right. So the purpose of networking. Networks facilitate communication between connected computers and sharing of what? Resources. So some of the subcomponents of a network, we have the server. There must be a server. And as I told you, before the end of this semester, we are going to visit the university server room, where we see the almighty ABU server and what is there. And maybe we get some people there that will guide us through the identification of the items in the server. So we get there. So there is a server. The function of the server is a high-speed machine that runs the computer or operates the system. It provides various services. So user management, security, file storage, system management, and so on. These are what server do. And this is an example of a pictorial server. And in fact, this particular picture, it is like the ABU server. You will see when we get there, but it is not. This one is not ABU server, because this is a kind of, it's a kind of code. You don't expose the server to people outside. In fact, by the time we go there, you ask not to take any picture. All right. So this is how a server looks like. Just some computers stacked together to provide what? High speed, user management, security, file storage, and the system management. This is one of the most important components of a network. They also have the workstations. These are your computers, your personal computers, your phone, your electronic gadget. So perform standalone processing within the system. Okay, look at this, a workstation. Maybe I've seen an office like this, like I think UBA Bank, that's university branch, the one in the campus. Maybe some of you don't even know that there is a UBA branch on campus. There is one close to gym. So the workspace there for at the top of the place is like this for some of them. And I think also have this kind of workstation. Then we also have the network interface cards. So like this is what we also use. So this one, we connect one computer. It is needed whenever you want to connect computer to another, serve as a communication link between your personal computers and the entire network. They also have the cables, lot of wires, so a lot of cables. So these are very useful for connecting the server to workstations, even between workstations. Then you have different types. You have the coaxial, the two-step peer, and the fiber optics. Then you have the sharing devices. 1 minute. The sharing devices like the hard disk, the printer, the scanner, the CD writers. These are some of the resources that we put together to form our network. So a network has some characteristics. So we have the network architecture. All right. So this defines the layout, how you lay out your network, the topology of your network. So you have the peer-to-peer or client-to-server architecture. I think I should have a picture here. You also have the protocol. So it's a common set of rules. They call it IP, Internet Protocol. Your IP, maybe you have heard something like, oh, your IP is not recognized or something like that when you're browsing. So this is needed for connecting your computer to Ethernet. So the IBM token ring network and so on. They have the topology, the arrangement of your computers in a network. You can have the bus arrangement, you can have the star, or we have the ring arrangement. So these are the arrangement of your computers in the network. We call them network topology. So there are now different types of a network. So we have the local area network. So where this one is only within a building or a limited geographical area within a building. Okay, like in a house now, if the breadwinner of the house has a router in the house, all of you in the house, you can be sharing that internet in the same house. This is possible. Within that building, everybody in that building will be able to see the wireless and be able to connect. Like some of us we do have. So a large area network is within a building or a limited geographical area. So like in a bank, this happens in a bank too, where you have the access only when you are in that branch of the bank. So a few computers or printers, that's why you see them, you go to the bank, they attend to you and they want to print your NIN slip or something, they will send it from their own computer and they go to one printer in a distance and go and pick it from there. Because the printer is networked with that computer. So using what we call local area network. So we also have the advantage, this is good for file sharing, it's easy, but also it offers the advantage like a virus can spread easily. If one computer is attacked with virus, all the computers connected to that one within the same network, we also have the problem. We also have the printer queues where 2 or 3 persons send document to print at a time. There can be a queue or a jam, or slow internet can also be another problem. Then we have the metropolitan area network. So this one, it covers a wider space than the building. Okay, like the ABU server now, I mean ABU, not server, ABU intranet. For those of you using wireless, using ABU wireless, and at this point, I think I must pause. If you are not using ABU wireless and you are in 300 level, you have never used ABU wireless, you are wrong, because every session you pay money for this ABU wireless. If you don't have correct password or you don't know your username, meet the IT or MIS office and get your username and password. So whenever you go to EA Abubakar or you come to education and you see open wireless that is ABU passworded, log in and start using instead of using your phone to browse. You pay the money for this every year. Every session you pay your school fees, you pay money for this. So the ABU wireless or Wi-Fi, so to say, is a good example of a metropolitan area network, where only if you're an ABU campus, by the time you step out to Samaru, you will not see it again. So it is a kind of network that is within a specific area, all right? Like a campus, like industrial park, like a city. So then we have the last part of it, which is the wide area network. So this one, it covers lots and lots of what areas. So it's formed by connecting several LANs through a router or a modem, and this covers a wide area of places. And some of the devices needed there are the modems, network hub, the switches, the bridges, and the routers. So this can cover the whole of Nigeria, for instance, like all the JAIS branches in Nigeria, or the UBA branches in Nigeria. They can communicate with each other using what we call the wide area network. So we have some merits and some demerits of computer networking. Like for instance, it's good for file sharing of resources, it's good for collaboration, it's good for communication, and it gives access to a wide amount of information. It is efficient in data management. So all these, So all these are the merits that we have whenever we connect computers together. Efficient use facilitates project collaboration and information sharing and so on. But also there are also some demerits. So like there can be security risk. So if one part of the computer in the network is hacked or is attacked with virus, every other one can be gotten. So of the cost, like for instance, now if ABU server is hacked, the whole of you will not be able to log into your portal, or you may not be able to print your course form, or you may not be able to pay your school fees and stuff like that. And at times, ABU server used to get hacked in such a way that the whole of the people on campus will be put into inability to access the server. There's also cost implication. It is not easy to set up, especially the wide area network, and can be complex at times. Then interconnected systems depend on one another, so network issues may interrupt people's work. Then privacy concerns, increased accessibility to personal information raises privacy concerns, and so on. Then I have some questions here for you, which under normal circumstances we're supposed to discuss it in group, but I don't know where the tool is missing here for breakout. But we can still read through this, or we have them in front of us, maybe for 2 minutes. So I can give you 1 minute to look at these questions instead of me reading for you. So you have a minute to look at the question. Okay. All right. I think we can move on to the last part of the note, which is the communication systems. So the communication system here, we talk about satellite, I guess, definition. Communication involves data transmission between devices. And these devices talk about machines aiding data transmission. This include radio, TV, satellite, and radars. So we have the radio communication. So like the component of a radio receiver, input circuits, demodulation circuits, low frequency amplifier, and loudspeaker. Now, at this point, you must realize that demodulation is coming from modulation. And since you know what modulation is, then it should be easier for you to understand demodulation. I told you, once you send information from your end, like I'm speaking to my mic now, before you can hear it, that information will pass through a process, and that process is what we call modulation. So there is another device in your own electronic that will demodulate that particular information so that you can hear whatever thing I'm saying. So this is part of the radio communication network. All right. So we also have the frequency bands, the short waves, the medium waves, and the long waves. Then we have the ultra short waves, depending on the house. Please take note of these bands, the FM and the AM that we have. Then also have the television communication. Remember, what we are just spoken about here, we talk about the communication devices, the radio communication. Now we are moving towards the television communication. So this is a system for sending and receiving pictures and sounds. Unlike radio, that one is only for sounds. But for television, it carries both sounds and images. Then the transmission system is through electronic signals transmitted through wires, optic fibers, or electronic radiation. Then the signal reception is broadcast from central stations to television set or relay station used by cable providers. Like for every TV stations now, they have dedicated offices in Abuja or in Lagos or somewhere. Like NTA now, I think they have offices in all the 36 states, including FCT. Okay, these are their central stations through which they broadcast their programs to people to see on the television. They also have the next part of it, the communication satellites. So this one's satellite as radio relay stations in what they do, what they provide signals for all these radios and TVs. And the advantage is that there is direct line of sight paths to 98% of the Earth's surface. Satellites are usually located in the space, through which we can communicate. When I say space, I'm talking about the sky, up in the sky. All right. Then the orbits around the Earth so that they can provide signals to people in the Earth. So I think recently some African countries have started launching their own satellites into the space, because usually we depend on the Western satellite, like that of the US especially. And if US should turn the satellite away from Nigeria, that means we don't have internet whatsoever. During the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, there was an attempt to launch a satellite like that. I don't know how that goes, but Nigeria is Nigeria always, yes. So what I'm saying here is that communication satellites, they are part of the communication devices that we have. All right. Then we still move on to radar communication. So this one is usually used by those operating with cargo ship. Like they send cargo ship from Mexico now to Nigeria. The one that carry this your sardine, this your fish, okay? Most likely from Mexico, they come into Nigeria. So this ship, as they are moving through the ocean, they are being monitored by what? By radar. The same thing with aeroplane from Nigeria to another country now. So the movement of the plane in the sky is being monitored by the radar. And that's why if there's a problem with the plane and the plane is off the radar, just know that there is a bigger problem for the plane to crash, because the pilots will not be able to communicate with the people at the airport. And then they will not be able to monitor the progress of the plane. Most likely, or most often, you hear a plane is missing. They couldn't locate the plane again. So that means the plane has been off the radar. All right. So they scan through surrounding space with radio waves and reflected beams, providing information on the size, distance, and the amplitude of the object. So you can see a picture here depicting how the radar works. And what you have up here is nothing but a satellite, but this one is what is for the radar to track the plane. All right. So a small activity here, maybe that will be for another time, is can you juxtapose what makes it? Look at this word, juxtapose. Juxtapose satellites and radar in communication systems. What do I mean by juxtapose? Whenever this kind of word comes up in your test or exam, what I'm just talking about is for you to compare and contrast. For you to do what? Compare and contrast. Whenever it's word juxtapose, put them side by side. Tell me their similarities and tell me their differences. And for you to do that, you must put it in what? Tabular form. Juxtapose. Very important. So the last part of the note today is on the fiber optics, which are also some of the devices that we use for communicating or as communication device. So the transmission system using rapid off-light emissions through glass pipes. So these are the fiber optics. And this particular type of wires or cables, they are what? They are very expensive. And maybe you've heard recently that there are some thieves that are moving all about to steal fiber optics. There was a time, I think not too long, the last semester, towards the end of the last year, where the gym, the CBT center gym, broke down, and there was no exam that could take. It was during the second semester exam. There was no exam that could take place there. It was because some people went there to steal the cables. They thought the cables were fiber optics, wherever they were just internet cables, and that disrupted the whole activities during that time here on campus just last year. So fiber optics, they are very expensive cables that we use in telecommunication, communication arena, and they have different types, the high speed, the coaxial cables, and the twisted pairs. They are some of the examples of the fiber optics we have. So again, part of the component on of communication device is integrated services digital network. So we call it ISDN. So the full meaning of ISDN is integrated services digital network. So it's a high-speed, fully digital telephone service, and it operates at speeds up to 128 kilobits per second, 5 times faster than the analog modems. So we use it a lot in information transfer over the internet. Either it is a local area network or wide area network or the metropolitan area network. So majorly we use it in LAN, that is local area network, especially for rich media and application securing LAN speed. All right. So I think this is what we have so far. And what we have considered in this particular lesson is all about telecommunication devices and what is telecommunication, what are the different modes of transmitting information, and what are the different information that we transmit. Then we'll move on to the components of telecommunication devices and how we can identify them, including the benefits and then the disadvantages of telecommunication in education. So